This afternoon workshop to order at 4:02, and welcome Rossmore. You kids are the joy that starts every meeting for us, and we're so happy that Rossmore is here today. So have fun, because you'll make our day special. I'd like to first ask for a roll call.
Mrs. Partisani.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Davidson.
Here.
Mr. Forehand. Here. Mr. Bragman.
Here.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for adoption of the agenda?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. And now we get to move to the Pledge of Allegiance, which I should have done first. And I'd like to invite Timothy Oak up to lead us. I almost lost that one.
Good evening. I am Timothy Oak, and I will be leading all of us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Thank you so much, President Davidson. It really is my esteemed pleasure to welcome the Rossmore community to the boardroom this evening, and also welcome Principal Amy Colty to the podium.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we have another surprise, so go ahead, Helly. I don't know if it's a surprise, but you know.
We are excited to have our Rossmore Royal Choir here tonight. As they come up to prepare, please welcome our music teacher, Mr. David Anderson, who will lead our Royal Choir in singing "This Land Is Your Land." I roamed and rambled, I'd follow my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice came chanting, "This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me." The sun comes shining as I was strolling, the wheat fields waving and the dust clouds rolling. The fog was lifting, a voice came chanting, "This land was made for you and me." This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest
you so much, Rossmore's Royal Choir. You may take a seat. Oh, no. Oh. Oh. Okay.
And we'd like to take a picture because sometimes they leave early and we miss out on some of these. So quick picture and the family take a picture too. Got it.
Oh, there you go. Okay, Mr. Charter. I'm going to get in there.
Oh my gosh, that was absolutely beautiful. There's not a song about America that tugs at hearts more than that one, and you sang it perfectly. It was absolutely beautiful. Let's give him another round of applause. And now, Mrs. Reed, did you have anything else? Okay, thank you. So,
Thank you.
Colty, would you like to begin?
Yes, I would. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And you guys just started this off beautifully. So good evening, President Davidson, esteemed members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Pulver, and our Rossmore Elementary community. Look at you guys. You really showed up tonight. Thank you so much for coming. We love this evening because we get to celebrate our school and tell you what's going on at Rossmore. And we have the privilege of hearing from two of our fifth grade Knights that are equally thrilled to talk about Rossmore this evening.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Pulver, and community members. My name is Hallie Lopez.
And I am Timothy Oak. We are excited to get started.
All right, that's right, Timothy. So we launched this school year with pure joy. Up there you see our UTK and Kinder Knights who kicked off their journey with a special signing day at Rossmore Park this summer, and it was a beautiful moment, not just for our kids, but for our parents. That event made me reflect, though. It made me think of another powerful tradition that we have, our senior walk at the end of the school year. So the seniors who visited last year were actually my first fifth grade class at Rossmore. And watching them return to campus and join our spirit assembly, and they actually proudly passed out million-word medals to our current Knights, it was really a full circle moment for me. Hearing them share their next steps, college, I was like, what? We're talking about college, careers? Like, just their adventures that they were looking forward to. And it's really the fruit of our labor as educators. So it just reaffirms the impact that we have every single day in our students' futures. So beginning in August, Team Rossmore came together, and with last year's motto of being our best self, we added a little spirit of encouragement and with this year's theme of Let's Go Knights. And the energy really hasn't faded. It echoes through our classrooms, our hallways, and playgrounds because at Rossmore, we are each other's biggest cheerleaders. So at Rossmore, growth mindset is really just in the fabric of who we are. We push our Knights, in a safe space to take risks, to push their thinking, and to grow from their mistakes. So in terms of instruction, we are being purposeful and mindful in knowing where our students are academically. That work is really being done by use of, a variety of informal assessments to understand student current progress so our teachers can guide their growth effectively. So what might that look like? Well, it looks like small group instruction. It looks like listening into book clubs and partnerships, utilizing whiteboards. It could be a fun Kahoot game. It could be a think, pair, share, or a think, pair, share with a twist, where kids are expected to tell the teacher what their neighbor said to show they're listening. It could be through different perspectives. exit tickets. It's really rich classroom dialogue, but it's also the art of respectful discussion. And I think the magic happens when you see a student teach another student and you see it click. It's kind of like, wow, how did it work? But they get it, right? So there's the beauty in knowing that in learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn. So as educators, it's so important to have those coaches, like when I think of cheerleaders, cheering us on. Up there you see Jill Cruz right in the center with Miss Opfer alongside her and just providing that valuable support.
I love how our teachers make history come to life. We just finished learning about the American Revolution, and I even got to play Benjamin Franklin in our Walk Through the Revolution field trip. Yep, that's me up there in that beautiful wig. I like to think myself as a historian, imagining what it was like for colonists, patriots, and loyalists in the 1700s. It's so cool to see how those choices shaped history.
One of my favorites is the notice a note strategy, which helps me with my stop and jots. What's a stop and jot? It's when I stop while reading, like if I have a question or if a character does something unexpected, and I write my thoughts on a sticky note. It helps me understand, clarify, and remember what I read. Overall, helping me become a stronger reader, which will help me way beyond the classroom.
Another thing that we appreciate is that our teachers just know when things get tough, and if we need that extra support. It's almost like they have a little radar alarm that goes off and notifies them. For example, in math, we get one-on-one help from our teachers and are pulled together so we can get that extra support.
Ooh, this reminds me of our math trios. We work in groups of 3s to help each other with different strategies. Since everyone has different strengths, we can support and learn from one another. It's also a great way to practice teaching because if you can teach it, you really know it.
That's right. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about informal assessments, but our formal assessments, such as CASP, are important as well. So taking a look at our CASP data for the 23-24 school year up here, in English Language Arts, third grade, we have 76% of our students who met or exceeded standards. In fourth grade ELA, 85%, and in fifth grade ELA, 82%. And then taking a look over at math, in third grade, 82% of students who met or exceeded standard, fourth grade 77, and fifth grade 73%. And this information also helps us to review growth in areas of focus, but it really allows us to guide our instruction and helps us really figure out and create intervention efforts that are really meaningful. And we are super excited still about our California Distinguished School Award from 2023. Yes. So this year, alongside our instructional focus, we've been rolling out Ruler, a social emotional learning approach. So a big thank you for all of you for sending us, our school teams, to Yale for training last year. Our staff has really been building the foundation by exploring the value of emotions and developing emotional intelligence skills. And you can see that in our staff charter up there, which reflects how we want to feel when we come to work. So we've also started introducing the charter, mood meter, and meta moment in our classrooms to help students recognize their emotions and to interact intentionally and communicate thoughtfully, which all of that supports our learning.
Our Wellness Center is another space we love. We're both part of the Book Buddies Club with Mrs. Heron, our wellness counselor. We just finished reading the book Trying and discussed its theme, how failure can help us grow. We even played a growth mindset Jeopardy to help reinforce the lesson.
We love our monthly wellness lessons. One of the most important topics we learn about is bully prevention. We take time to understand how our actions affect others and how we can keep our schools safe. On Unity Day, we all wore orange to show that we treat everyone with kindness and acceptance. Did you know that even if you're not the one bullying, laughing or watching can still give the bullying power. Well, that's why we choose to be upstanders. It makes a big difference.
We're also proud members of the Night Leadership Council, where we help lead assemblies, make morning announcements, plan spirit weeks like Kindness Week, and create awareness through making posters for events. We also help with Start with Hello Days, making sure everyone feels seen and connected. I love our houses. They're important in the process of creating connections. Every couple weeks, we gather with our big and little buddies in a house meeting to make a difference by supporting those in need within our community.
Whether it's dropping off food for a We Care food drive, 700 pounds of food to be exact, or our houses competing to donate coins to support those in need with the fires this year, or writing notes to local veterans, or getting ready for annual Save the Beach cleanup day. Our house meetings are a fun chance to work together and connect one another.
If you're new at Rossmore, at one of the first assemblies, you'll be sorted into one of our houses: Galahad, Lancelot, Percival, or Gawain. We also hold a friendly competition to win the House Cup by earning house points with participation in class or doing something kind.
We love our reading celebration assemblies, where we earn medals and celebrate our reading goals. Our Veterans Day assembly brings families and community together to honor our loved ones. And we have the best school garden. We work with master gardeners and even use it for math, history, and science lessons, like planting the 3 sisters while learning how Native Americans grew their food. That's right, we actually grow food.
That's true. And I know this year you guys really enjoyed when the ASB Griffins came and visited. We were super excited about that. They took our kids through fun icebreaker activities, and I think they even helped you plan our Winter Spirit Week. And they shared about all their experiences in ASB, so these two are ready to sign up. I think you were before, though. Okay, so Rossmore thrives, in addition, really because of our amazing PTA and Friends of Rossmore. Their dedication funds essential programs, field trips, assemblies, STEM, and so much more. So we're so grateful. Our Apex Fun Run was a huge success again this year, raising over $75,000. And to celebrate, I followed through. I even dressed as a knight on a dragon. And there's no photo, but I rode a tricycle around for an entire day, and I was super sore. But this fundraiser is critical since our PTA supports so much. So AR, Raz Kids, Reflex Math, our intervention supports, school assemblies, Castle Rossmore, field trips, so much more. And wonderful events like our PTA Carnival and Camp Out are just really ways that bring our families together and help us create those relationships and memories. Friends of Rossmore also plays a key role in funding our LAIF STEM Lab teacher's salary, which is a huge feat. Purchasing STEM supplies, supporting our house system. Our STEM lab gives students hands-on experience in really the engineering design cycle, learning how to collaborate with one another, and real-world science connections. So you see Mrs. Baluyat and I up there, and we are really becoming Human Sundays, and it was all for a good cause because we met our goal of raising over $15,000 for our STEM-a-thon. Yep, those are just a few examples.
And I hope you don't miss Friends of Rossmore's 80-themed auction night this Saturday. My parents will be there. Not sure about you, though. I'm not sure if you know, our teachers created a must-watch 80s video. It's both fun and informative if you need a good laugh. We were laughing so hard we were crying in class.
Also, a huge thank you to LAIF for supporting our STEM lab, after-school enrichment, and our wellness center. Their impact is felt every day. We were very excited to get additional grants through LAIF for our 3D printer, Sphero robots, and STEM supplies.
That's right. And to make all this happen, you have to communicate, right? And the You guys know parents, we text and email all the time. So part of that communication is through our Monday morning email, our PTA Monday morning messages that go out weekly. It's our regular updates on Parent Square. You can check out our social media, obviously, with our celebration and our highlights. And we just love shouting out kids for their Night Pride. So that's done through House Points, also our Citizenship Night Pride Awards and Noble Nights. And then we started something new this year called the Shining Night Recognition, where a staff member, any staff member, can nominate a student who just goes above and beyond. So over the loudspeaker, I read their achievements. They get to come up, wear a knight's cloak, a crown, take a photo, receive a sticker, get a yard sign. It's a big deal. Big deal. So we've also made it a big priority to just warmly welcome new families and students. So I personally write them handwritten notes, welcoming them, knowing that I want them to feel embraced and as they're becoming, coming to our family. And then really offering opportunities with PTA and Friends of Rossmore where we set up family nights and parent night outs as well. And then our campus is so beautiful, like it really is, and it's because of our amazing custodial team. So they take great pride in keeping our school spotless, and it's not uncommon for our visitors to compliment just how clean our campus is every time someone comes on the Rossmore campus. So pictured up there, you see Mr. Josh, and with his custodian for the day, River, who is so proud to help. This might have been his second year in a row doing that. And to further enhance our safety as well, we have added more security cameras in high traffic areas, and we've even added the installed privacy tinting that you see on the media center hallway windows for extra safety measures as a precaution as well. And
Honestly, we can go on forever, Mrs. Colty, but with limited time.
We wanted to capture the heart of Rossmore in a way that speaks for itself. So let's take a look.
How do we practice being our best selves? Let us show you.
Being my best self means I'm kind to others.
I am my best self when I have a positive attitude, a growth mindset, and ready to learn.
I do my best to keep the school clean and safe, and I hope that my efforts encourage them to keep it clean as well.
You can't just throw trash on the floor, because that's not very nice.
I am my best self when I'm positive, focused, and hardworking.
It's coming to school with my pencil, my glasses, my backpack, and I'm ready to learn.
I really work hard to create a warm and inclusive classroom community where students feel safe, where they feel valued, and where they understand that making mistakes is part of the learning process, and it's okay if we do, right? We may not be there yet, but we'll get there.
I'm super excited to learn, but I can't just run to class. I take a deep breath, and then I let it out, and then I walk to class, and then I hang up my backpack, and then I could go learn in my class.
We try to lift each other up, not break each other down by giving each other compliments.
In our house system, we encourage everyone to be their best selves by fostering kindness, respect, and teamwork. By modeling these values, we inspire one another to create a community where everyone feels supported and included.
We have 4 houses. I'm in Lancelot, but we're one family.
Our 4 houses participate in house challenges that help others in need. Our little buddies look up to us, so we set an example and show night pride so they can too.
Being your best self is caring for others. It's kindness. It's when you help somebody. If I needed help, I would want somebody to help me.
I am my best self when we start with hello day. We wear our shirts and we say hello to everyone.
I'm my best self when I'm laughing.
Night Leadership Council allows our 5th grade nights an opportunity to really grow as leaders and discover who their best self is, whether they are spreading joy on a Start With Hello Day or leading a house chant, or really just in their everyday lives as students. They're really leading by example, which then inspires others to become better too.
Every day you wake up and have a choice to have a good mood or a bad mood. I choose to smile.
It's asking people if they are okay.
I'm new in Rossmore this year, and people are treating me with kindness, respect, and made me feel included, which made me the best version of myself.
When I greet my students with a smile and make sure that they leave with a smile at the end of the day.
Sometimes when I get upset, I take a deep breath in and poof, This my best self.
At Rossmore Elementary, we realize that every day we have many opportunities to be our best selves. We are learning that how we show up every day matters, not just for ourselves, but for others too.
So we always say once a night, always a night. And what builds that sentiment are the connections and the milestones our nights experience. It's the once in a lifetime moments like outdoor science school. It's at promotion when our 5th grade speakers that are brave and courageous get to share their advice and knowledge with their peers. It's our school pride, you can see that up there, and spirit brought to life by our house system. It's at a staff meeting, that's the bottom right there, with Team Galahad showing their competitive edge when they take the win on an icebreaker activity. It's when our staff climbs into their blow-up costumes at the variety show and perform their hearts out in a surprise mass singer performance. It's when you realize the sky's the limit. And these experiences ignite our district core values: care, responsibility, equity, and commitment. So I want to take a moment to thank our visionary Board of Education, our district officials for always just trusting and supporting. We appreciate you. I am I'm just so, I don't know, proud, I guess, is from our community at Rossmore. Our teachers are amazing, our classified staff, our special ed team, our classified, like everybody that we have, our office staff, you guys are awesome, and you bring it every day. So proud to be at Rossmore. And of course, these two just made it happen today. Let's hear it for Hallie and Timothy.
We're truly honored to be here this evening. Thank you for having us.
Rossmore is such a special place, and we hope that shines through in everything we've shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Education, you are getting our highest, you are awesome. And your enthusiasm was heard and felt all along. And then one more, Mrs. Colty.
Yes.
The Board of Education knows that you make a difference, and we appreciate everything you do on behalf of the board. You get your medal.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much. That absolutely blew the roof off. It's so wonderful to see the culture that you, your staff, and teachers are building. Rossmore is a family. You just see, so you're not, the academics are unbelievable. We are blessed to get to walk through the classroom and see incredible instruction, but you're building this sense of identity for your kids that's so positive. And we felt that in the presentation. Hallie and Timothy, you were absolutely outstanding. Your poise, your elegance, and the way that you did everything just really shines. But Rossmore is a special place, and I'm glad you said once a night, always a night, because this is going to scare you guys. You don't know how old your school is. I was a 2nd grader at Rossmore many decades ago. Many decades ago. But the district has done a great job of keeping everything going. Anyway, thank you so much. And I know there are other comments. Anybody?
Thank you. I was not a knight, but I was a parent of 2 knights. And it makes me really proud to see all the amazing work that continues to be done at Rossmore and the heart that you have. And just the way that you carry yourselves, you should all be really proud when you were sitting up here singing. And I didn't know that song had so many verses. Thank you for sharing. But you just are really amazing young people. And I think a lot of it comes from, I heard things like to be able to have discussion respectfully, a growth mindset, knowing what that looks like. And Mrs. Colty, I also want to say I love your staff charter and that I love that you're open with your students, that you all are dealing with those emotions as well and want to come to school with those positive emotions. And that's leading by example, and that's tremendous. And so I'm just really proud to be a former Knight parent.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I want to echo everything that was just said and add to it that I loved your performance. That is actually one of my favorite songs, and you guys performed it so beautifully. The two of you, ASB wants you, please. You are ready. And Mrs. Colty, I tremendously enjoyed walking through your beautiful campus. The pride that we feel in this room is really evident throughout the campus. And I love, and I think I mentioned this to you before, I love the fact that you give an opportunity for the lower grades to interact with the upper grades through the house formation. I think that's such a wonderful opportunity to not only for the older grades to practice leadership, but also compassion, and for the younger grades to have something to aspire to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go way back because both my children, and I'm older than you, Diana, both my children were Rossmore Knights in the 1980s. And for me to go back, it's just like Amy said, to watch her first fifth graders come back as high school graduates, well, it made me think, gosh, my kids are way older, and Rossmore was special then, and it's totally special now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way as Ms. Partisani. Walking on your campus, the garden is something I noticed, and I do the gardening at home. It was amazing. So the fact that it is something that you guys can eat from and are enjoying and growing every day is special. I actually appreciate there was less focus on academics during the presentation and really about the culture. I think that the culture you have there at Rossmore is special. And I heard that loud and clear. 4 houses, 1 family. I think when I visited, I asked, is there competition? And there is. But it's always one family. It's Rossmore. And I think that sets a model for our district. We're 9 schools, but we're one district. And we all end up at the same high school together. And so I think it sets a great example. We should all be one family all the time. So keep up the good work. Students here are amazing. I know Ms. Partisani and myself, our kids are going to go to OSS, I think, with your kids, right? Yeah. So I've heard great things about pen pals and relationships that have been made together.
Fifth graders are pen pals, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think 5th grader.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not making that up. So I know
No,
I've
not.
already learned about some of you through that writing. So keep up the good work. I am so excited to see where you guys continue to grow, and you are an amazing family to each other and to us as a district.
Thank you. Dr. Pulver?
Yes, I'll try to be brief, but it's hard to be brief when you're talking about such an exceptional school. Hallie and Tim, you brought your best self tonight, and I'm sure you bring your best self every day. And I have to say that I did have to stop and jot a few times as you guys were speaking, because there was just so many exceptional qualities about the Rossmore community. Hands off to our student choir who did such a wonderful performance. But really, it's the joy and it's the family atmosphere. It's the student connections and the connections with staff that they have with all of you as well. Mrs. Colty has done an exceptional job. It's so fun to see a principal who's able to last and really see her first year students graduate from Los Alamitos High School, or your 5th graders to go through rather. But you really talked about the family system as well, that some of them also mentioned. But I love those personal connections, the personal notes to you. And we saw that in the video of a new kid who's brand new to Rossmore and how you've reached out. And that matters. And I know that leadership matters, because when you model that, I know your staff model that as well. And it's just such an exceptional place to be. Rossmore is just pure of fun and joy. And I did see the staff video about the dance coming up this weekend. And you're absolutely right, Tim. It is hilarious. Mrs. Pichardo and I were probably crying as well in joy and laughter. So good luck. And thanks to our parents for always going above and beyond to help partner with us to provide extraordinary opportunities and ways to connect and engage our students to ensure that they're thriving in a multitude of ways. So great job. It's a great place to be, a Rossmore Knight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now, Now, Mrs. Colty, I know you have a very special presentation. We're looking forward to that.
Yes, I do. So this is another fun part of our night, but of course we want to honor our hero of the heart. So please join me in welcoming, well, our Rossmore staff is honoring, not just Mrs. Colty, but Mrs. Sydney Unger. Rossmore's 2024-25 Hero of the Heart. I know. Look at that. Oh, yep. Good luck carrying all that. Yeah. No, just kidding. We're gonna actually, of course, you have people here with you, but we had trouble finding seats because we're so packed. So Sydney's husband, Jared, is here if he wants to come up too, and their two sons, Logan and Jackson. Come on up. But Sydney, I'm just going to start talking about you because you're amazing. And we really appreciate you. So from the moment Sydney stepped onto our campus, she's been a driving force of dedication. It might have taken her like a few weeks, but I mean, she got right in there. And since then, it's been dedication, kindness, and commitment. While many of you know her as our PTA president, her influence extends far beyond that title. She has also served as our PTA vice president. She volunteers regularly, almost like she works at Rossmore, in her children's classrooms and really any classroom where we might need help or any location. And she takes on the role of room parent each year, going above and beyond and guiding other room parents through an annual informational meeting that she usually leads herself. And let's be honest, she is really the heart and soul behind our incredible fall carnival as well. So Sydney's dedication doesn't stop there. She pours her heart into every aspect of our school, whether it's compiling the 5th grade yearbook that she just submitted 2 days ago, organizing fun family nights, coordinating food trucks for special events, which she just helped me do for open house. She even opened her home at the beginning of the year to host our Moms Meet and Mingle event, creating a warm and welcoming space for a lot of our new families that are just nervous and excited and want to know what they should do. And we are like, we have a list. Here you go. But opening her home to do that is a really big deal. So no matter what task, she approaches it with kindness, generosity, and her signature bright smile. A few of our staff members really everybody had something to say, but I just took a few little excerpts from what they shared. So Mrs. Ellis expressed that watching Sydney grow into an incredible parent volunteer leader at Rossmore has been such a joy. She embraces every challenge with enthusiasm, whether it's guiding a group of first graders at the benches or orchestrating one of the biggest family events. She always says yes and does it all with a beautiful smile. And she's so glad we're recognizing her for everything that she does. And Mrs. Thomas has shared that Sydney pours her heart into everything she does to ensure our nights have the best experience possible. From school events and fundraisers to transforming our media center, she's always the first to step in and just make it happen. Her kindness and dedication brings so much joy to our community, creating lasting memories for her students and families. And here's her beautiful picture of her family in case you can't see them, sorry. So really Rossmore is a better place because of all your dedication, Sydney. You're just so selfless. So we appreciate you. You're so deserving. You're going to come over here because I'm going to make you say something. A lot of times, I think people just don't know who's getting things done, but Sydney's always the one back there just making it happen, or at least has a part of it. So I just want to say as a principal, that's a lot of trust, and I just appreciate that, having that relationship and knowing that she's there to really think about all of our nights and to make their experiences, worthwhile and memorable in elementary school. And so, as the saying goes, the strength of a knight is not in their armor, but in their willingness to serve others. Sydney, you embody this spirit every day through your selfless service to our school. And on behalf of our wonderful Rossmore team, it's an honor to celebrate you, and congratulations.
I'm very honored. When I first started volunteering at my kids' school, it was to really help them feel a sense of community. And I, in turn, got a community for myself, and I'm just very grateful for that, and I'm very honored to be a part of it. Thank you. Oh, wow. I've been waiting for this.
On behalf of the Board of Education, you make a tremendous difference, and you are number one on one side.
Thank you.
Sydney, thank you. On behalf of the board, it's the leaders that make a difference are the ones that don't just have the vision, orchestrate, and then delegate. Listening to all that you dig in and do is what inspires other people to join you. So your kind of leadership is exactly what we all need. So thank you so much. Dr. Pope.
Just one of the things that we often say here in Los Al is that the hallmark of this district are exceptional people. And we could not do this work without exceptional volunteers who go above and beyond, not just for their kids, but for all kids. And what a great role model as well that you're setting for your own children is the gift and the value of service. And I think I often say one of the best gifts we can ever give is the gift of ourselves, the gift of our time. And so I just want to thank you for the gift of your time and thank your entire family, because I know sometimes it's an impact on the family as well. So we are very grateful for all that you do. It does make a difference. Thank you.
And the celebration keeps on going. Dr. Weisright?
Oh, wow, this moves a little bit. That's great. Well, yes, the celebration of Rossmore just continues. Today, we get to recognize one of our exceptional employees who happens to work at Rossmore, and it's Miss Laura Younger. So, Laura, will you join us? So, we have over 400 classified employees, and they are exceptional. But Laura, you rise to the cream at the top. She just is an exceptional school nurse at Rossmore Elementary who goes above and beyond in every single way. I know that she works probably way more hours than what her paycheck actually shows, because she's that committed to students, that committed to Rossmore, and to all of our students and families. Laura has been with us for 5 years officially, I believe, in this role. But the work that she does to ensure the health and safety of our students, she deals with parents, sometimes in very sensitive situations, and deals with them in such a professional manner in which really uplifts students to make sure that they can access their education and their extracurricular activities or field trips or outdoor science school, et cetera. And so always make sure that there's no barrier between what happens at the school and being able to allow a student to participate. So we're just honored to be able to recognize Laura. She's an individual who goes above and beyond. I can remember not the day before winter break, and we had that infamous lockdown at Rossmore, and Laura just is such a calm effect who's always willing to really just pitch in any way that she can to make sure our students and our staff and our families thrive. And so we're so grateful. And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Colty, who wants to share a bit more about this exceptional employee.
Just in case, okay. Okay. I was going to try them on.
Oh, you could. They're just readers.
I wrote a few things just because I knew my brain would be all over the place. But here, come stand by me. Just because This is what she does every day. She stands by me. Like, I'm not kidding. She's like in our school, just part of everything all the time. So Laura, today we celebrate you, and there's no one more deserving of this recognition that I can think of. Your dedication, kindness, and commitment to our students, staff, and families make an incredible impact every single day. You bring such care and thoughtfulness to everything you do, always putting students first. Ensuring their well-being is a top priority. Your ability to anticipate needs and take proactive steps shows just how deeply you are invested in the success and health of our school community. You support families with professionalism and empathy. That is such a strength of yours, making even the most sensitive conversations feel manageable and ensuring that parents feel heard and supported. You extend the same care for our teachers and staff, always ready to offer guidance, assistance, and encouragement. She probably knows more about our staff and just all of us than we mean to even tell her. She just listens and she's there for us. Beyond your incredible work, it's the way you do it, the warmth, compassion, and heart for service that truly sets you apart. You make our team stronger, our school brighter, and our students healthier and happier. So Laura, we're so proud of you and so grateful to have you as part of our Rossmore family. Congratulations.
Obviously, this district has a lot of stars, but Laura, you have the most beautiful, warm, and welcoming way about you. You came at a time when everything was really difficult, coming out of COVID, facing the mental health issues, trying to get the kids back on campus and feel loved and secure, and you have such a capacity to do that. We are so thankful for you, for your beautiful, empathetic heart, your skills, your knowledge, and your wisdom, and we are a better place because you're in it. So we want to thank you on behalf of the board.
Appreciate it.
One more. All right, Laura, on behalf of the board, I got permission to contact the Olympic Committee because you're a gold medal winner. And they even let me put on the back, you were awesome. So congratulations.
All right, Laura, we're going to let you say a few things, but we also have a gift card for $100 from Leif. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This is a really huge honor, and I was really surprised. Being a school nurse is a really big privilege and responsibility, and I want to thank my staff for trusting me with your students and making sure that you know what to do with them every day. And I want to thank the parents for trusting me with sharing your students' health information with me, because sometimes that's a hard thing to do, but I just want to thank you for trusting me in that. And I want to thank Mrs. Colty for just being my sidekick and always supporting me in anything that we need to get done at school and outside of school. And I want to thank my 3 Knights right here, Ryan, Zach, and Kate. Kate's at Chapman, killing it. Ryan's a junior at the high school, varsity captain of the lacrosse team. And Zach's killing it at Oak. Super proud of my Knights. Knights go on to do great things. So thank you very much. And my mom is here. Thank you, Mom. And my brother Ryan is here. And my dad, Chris, and my stepmom, Karen.
And it is Miss Younger's birthday. So it's Miss Younger's birthday, so we can't just have her come here, right? We definitely have to sing our hearts out one more time, Royal Choir. You got this? Are we ready? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mrs. Younger. Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for having us tonight. This was so much fun to talk about Rossmore. It's such a great place. Thank you.
Good job, Amy.
Thank you. Do we want to talk about? Okay.
Hopefully not. Hopefully it stays out.
So at this point, we're going to take a recess so that we can get pictures. And are there cookies in the back? We have cookies in the back for the kids, but
Look it up.
oh no, because of Laura's birthday. Yeah, so we'll take a few minute breaks.
So we're going to take pictures of our students. Tim and Hallie, our hero of the heart, all Rossmore staff, and of course our classified employee of the year. So let's start off with choir. We already did you, so you can go get a cookie if you want.
So we're now calling the meeting out of recess and back into session. This would be the point where we have public comments, but we have no cards, so we will move on to information, presentation, and discussion. Mrs. Reed?
Perfect. Thank you so much, President Davidson. It's a little low, but that's okay. So it really is my pleasure tonight to talk about the landscape of secondary mathematics. And so really the overview of the workshop tonight will be a review of the history of the Secondary Math Collaborative, an overview of current mathematics metrics, as well as sharing about the current work of our Secondary Math Collaborative, or as I affectionately call it, the SMC 2.0. And so what I would like to share really before I get started is just a huge thank you and really just a shout out of gratitude to all the mathematics teachers who have been part of the initial SMC as well as the SMC 2.0, who really are willing to come in and have really vulnerable conversations about our math data, how we're serving students in mathematics, and are really so open-minded and forward-thinking to have these open collegial discussions with each other. And we've done some work, as we'll overview, that has really impacted the state of math currently that they should be really proud of. And I know I'm very fortunate to be able to lead the group and feel that way every time that we spend time together. So I wanted to give a shout out to those men and women who have been doing this work with us back since 2018. So we have some new board members, and so really wanted to kind of give an overview of what was the Secondary Math Collaborative and its history. And so the SMC started as an idea in 2017 as a self-selective learning body really composed of secondary math teachers and administrators focused on improving math in Los Alamitos Unified. So our first school year together was the 18-19 school year, and we really kicked off our first 2 years together engaged in professional learning offsite. And so this is actually a picture of the initial SMC in the fall of 2018, where we spent 2 days on the campus at Stanford learning under Professor Bowler and really talking and thinking about the way math takes shape in the framework of our daily lives and how that impacts learning inside of our classrooms. And so it had a founding group of 27. So we were 22 math teachers, grades 6 through 12, and 5 administrators who really spent 2 years with a heightened focus on math achievement and math instruction. And the initial reason why we came together was really, I think many researchers are calling it now the math midcliff, that data point about 6th or 7th grade where we start to see really nationally math data start to have a downwards trajectory from the elementary experience. And so, you know, we're really blessed here in so many ways, but one of them is that we have a unified school district. And so for us at the high school and middle school level, we're not receiving students from multiple feeder districts. So for us, the question is personal. These are students who stay with us from kindergarten through 12th grade. And so as we see that data change, we are in control of the instruction, the strategies, and the opportunities that we create for students to assure that we're doing the best work we can. So that's initially what brought us together. And then as we really started strategic planning, really we're able to look at a lot of different areas those first 2 years together. And so we really framed our work back then, and even with the SMC 2.0 in our first strategic planning meetings, as what are the essential questions that we're hoping to answer? And not that we would ever 100% answer all of these questions, but that each of our opportunities spent together, we would be looking at data, talking about the data we want to see, visiting classrooms, engaged in book discussions to help inform us and educate us about ways to answer parts of these questions or all of the question. And so our 6 essential questions for those first 2 years really was, what is the main goal of math instruction? Really identifying that for ourselves. As we know, the world of math and science was greatly changing and continues to greatly change the way that we shape opportunities for students who leave us after graduating as Griffins. What is high quality math instruction? We talk about high impact, high quality. What is that? How do we define it, and what does it look like in classrooms? What is the optimal math scope and sequence 612? What is the ideal classroom struggle that leads to constructive struggle? So really that idea of going from knowing to not knowing. What is the span of that time? How should it look and feel? And how do we engage students to understand that that frustration that happens between knowing and not knowing is part of the constructive struggle of learning? How do we integrate Bowler's ideas into math while still covering all content? And then how do we change math mindset or student mindset? And so in those initial year together, we did a large survey asking students how they felt about math. And when does it change? When does a student go from loving math and feeling they're great at math to feeling that they're no longer good at math? Does our scope and sequence impact that? Do the things we say inside our classrooms impact that? And so we really were looking at a large bank of questions as we kind of did the work together for those 2 years. We didn't anticipate to go farther. However, our friend the pandemic arrived. And so after 2 years together, we were on a hiatus for a couple of years. And so I want to pay some honor to the work that was done for those 2 years by really looking at the impact to our current state of math from the work that this group did together diligently for 2 years. So this is a comparison of data from 2016-17, we used that data during our work 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20, compared to the data from last year, 24, as we re-embarked this school year to do the work 25-26. During those 2 years of 2018 to 2020, we revised the middle school math courses and the course progression entirely, really looking at articulated standards all the way from 4th grade through 12th grade. We created 2 new classes at Los Alamitos High School, an introduction to algebra class, as well as a data science class, which really helped us look at keeping students engaged in mathematics for 4 years, as well as something that was an internal problem for us as we looked at data, and that was this idea of the large number of students who were repeating algebra. We had a large number of algebra repeats from our 8th grade program, as well as an ongoing problem, that we had regardless of how we taught algebra to our most struggling students, whether it was a 2-year algebra program, algebra A, B, C, some or D. We tried a lot of things with a lack of success. And so we landed at an introduction to algebra class, which we'll look at success at in a minute, that mirrors the same class at our middle school level. So really part of the work we did was synchronizing the math landscape and progression of standards from 6th grade to 12th grade, regardless of where you took a class. Because some of what we uncovered in those early years was introduction to algebra, as well as algebra at middle school had a different focus and articulation of standards than our students at the high school. Yet all of those students dumped into geometry and beyond together. So really, how do we provide that integral schema and foundation all students will need as they progress towards upper level mathematics at Los Alamitos High School? We also opened a ton of math opportunities at Los Alamitos High School through this work. And then I'd say the biggest core of our work, which I'm just thrilled about for next school year, is 2 years of discussions about the equalization of instructional minutes for math and science at middle school really took shape during the 2018-19 and 19-20 school years with the Secondary Math Collaborative. The idea that if you took algebra at a middle school, you received 20 less days of instruction than if you enrolled in algebra at Los Alamitos High School. That's the difference in instructional minutes just for math alone, is 20 full school days when you look at the impact of a 7-period day to a 6-period day for kiddos. And so those discussions happened here, and they continued these last couple of school years, and we picked that work back up. And so when we kind of drill down about the impacts and look at the growth statements from this work from 2 years ago, we can see that we have a 7% increase of students taking 4 years of math. So that was one of our big goals with that initial SMC. We've gone from 61.5% to 68.4%. We still have a lot of work to do, but I think another celebration of this is we've decreased our senior fallout by 50%. The creation of data science has created a 4th-year senior college prep A through G math course that doesn't require students to enroll in an AP or calculus class if that's not their path. Many of our students have impacted schedules within the humanities, our English departments, and in the arts. And the reason they weren't taking a 4th-year class is they didn't want to add on an AP, a pre-calc at that level. So the creation of data science, and we would see these students start the class, and then in the first 6 weeks, we would have a large dropout of seniors. So we've gone from a 6% dropout to a 3% dropout from our 2017 to our 2024 data. We've seen a 9% decrease in overall Ds and Fs in math courses. So our biggest decreases are in intermediate algebra, principles of geometry, and algebra 2, which is really key for us because those are the gateway classes to completing your A through G access. We've also, I think our best work is our decrease in algebra 1 repeats. can't get a diploma in the state of California if you don't successfully complete algebra. Algebra is the foundational math class for all upper division math courses. We've gone from a 4.7 repeat at middle school to a 0.9% repeat. So that's huge for us because many of our students who are taking algebra as an 8th grader would be what we would consider students who are on an honors pathway for math. So to think that we had close to 5% of our best math students being unsuccessful 8th grade year and repeating something their freshman year of high school, really that shouldn't have been the case. And so we're at a 0.9%. And then at the high school, which I think speaks volumes of the work the entire team at our high school has done, we've gone from a 9.9% repeat to a 5.3% repeat of Algebra 1 through the work of this team. So I think there's a lot to celebrate there. We've learned a lot, and I'm really excited about the work that we're going to continue to do and build upon kind of this legacy work that first SMC completed. And so I'm going to kind of pivot us to current day now and look at an overview of our current secondary math metrics. So the standardized testing data that we have available to us at the secondary level, I think that paints a picture of mathematic achievement on a large continuum. And so I kind of want to break it down so that the board and people at home can understand value in some of these metrics. And so at the high school level, we see a larger variety of standardized math testing than we do at middle school, right? So at middle school, we really only have CASP, which is the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. But at the high school level, we also have SAT data, ACT data. We have our AP math courses, their completion and passage rate, as well as our A through G percentage, really being a core to opening doors for students regardless of their pathway when they leave high school as metrics that are valuable when we look at mathematics instruction. And so many know CASP or SBAC as it's the state umbrella of standardized testing. And so we give the math assessment in grades 3 through 8. And then we don't give it again to grade 11. And so we really are kind of devoid of some really pertinent information about students taking an online adaptive test, right, during those school years. Something else that's interesting when we look at data from CASP that I think, unless you really dig down into it, that you're unaware of, is the instruction that's accompanying the assessment. So when you were enrolled in elementary school, you were being taught 3rd grade standards and you're assessed on 3rd grade standards through CASP. When you come to 6th grade, students are either enrolled in a grade 6 class or a grade 6-7 class. So if you're a 6th grade student, you are getting instruction on the 6th grade standards and you're taking a 6th grade assessment. I think one of my slides got off. Maybe it is later. I'm going to flip to it because it actually makes a lot more sense in here. When you are an 11th grader with us, you are taking a math assessment that's integrated from algebraic thinking to principles of geometry, and you enrolled in one of 9 different mathematics courses, only one of which matches the assessment that you are taking. So you are enrolled in anything from pre-calculus to advanced math trig, to intermediate algebra, to algebra 2, all the way down to principles of geometry. So some students take the 11th grade test and haven't seen the integration of those math concepts from many math courses previously. So it's just always something to keep in mind that students haven't been assessed on this assessment for 2 years and are enrolled in one of 9 classes, only 2 of which actually match the mathematical standards that are being assessed on that math test. It's not that that doesn't make the information valid or that we shouldn't pay attention to it or work to increase our data. I think it just means we have to look at a lot of metrics to get a bigger picture of what's happening with math instruction on our campus. And so when we talk about metrics, I think it's also important at the high school level in particular to talk about value of metrics. And so students are the test takers, and high school students have motivations that look very different than the motivations of an elementary school student. And so when we look at the other metrics, all of them are tied to what I would consider a high value asset except for CASP. So CASP can be used at some of the CSUs for placement and used at the community colleges for placement into English and math classes. Other than that, the only additional I'd say value of CASP is an ELA, because if you're proficient or advanced or meeting standards on the ELA component, you can be a contender for the seal of biliteracy if you are also completing a level 4 language class. But when we look at our other metrics, you can see there's high value assets attached to them. So my completion of the SAT and ACT and PSAT can lead to college funding as well as entrance into college admissions. My AP classes that I take and pass, those tests lead to college credit, which in turn means money saved or advancement in coursework when you get to a 4-year university. When we talk about A through G completion, we're also talking about being college eligible and being able to directly enroll into a 4-year university or college after you graduate as a Griffin. So in terms of motivation for students to engage and I'd say do their best, we have a lot more value from students when we talk about SAT, their AP testing, as well as the completion of the A through G course requirements. And so when we look at our district up from the macro level, this is our data compared to 2023 to 2024. You can see that we're currently number 3 in the county in mathematics. And you probably wouldn't think that if you saw 66% or 65%. So I think it's really important to note that the state level, the state meeting or exceeding proficiency is at 34%, and the county proficiency is at 48%. That doesn't mean that we're happy about 65%, right? So I think we all have a vision of 100% of students meeting or exceeding standards when it comes to both ELA and math. So this is definitely work that we're looking at. This year we have started into a process of new district benchmarks that are computer adaptive with the NWA MAP growth assessment, currently giving those in grades 2 through 8. I just gave a presentation last week at the high school. It's my second one there. I have a third one coming. So really growing those conversations about continuing to have an online or adaptive assessment available for students. When we then start to look at our middle school data, you can see that we do start to decline, that mid-cliff is real for us. And so we have work to do. And so you can see that we're held between 2023 and 2024 at 61%, still way above the county and state average, but still 39% of students that we have to find a way to assure that they will meet or exceed proficiency on CASP. When we come to the high school, we did increase 3% from 2023 to 2024, coming back to 50% proficiency, way above the state and county average. But we have a lot of work to do here in terms of assuring that our students have access to rigorous mathematics, that regardless of the assessment they're taking, they would be able to show proficiency and mastery of standards. This just really goes back to highlight this incredible plethora of courses that a student at Los Alamitos High School could be engaged in. So when we talk about having dialogue with our SMC, we are really talking about dialogue from intro to algebra to AP Calculus BC and a long continuum of courses in between. And so when we pay close attention to our SAT and ACT data at Los Alamitos High School, you can see that we are thriving when it comes to these assessments. And so a perfect score on the math section of the SAT, is an 800. And you can see that we were consistently growing from 2017 through 2022 at a 633 average. And really, I mean, out of 800 points, fell short just a couple of points at 629 this past school year. The state average on the SAT math section is 537, and the national average is 507, and our students have an average of 629. When we look at our ACT data, similarly, we are way outperforming state and national data. A perfect score on the math section of the ACT is 36. You can see our average is a 26.8, and the national average right now is 19. So it's almost a 50% divide between where our students are performing. And that national data is important. Our students, as you know, look widely when it comes to college admissions. Our students we have applicants to all 50 states, I would imagine. I had a daughter graduate last year, and other than Alaska, I really can't think of a state that someone that she knew wasn't applying to or didn't have an interest in. So competing nationally, as well as being competitive inside the state of California, is very important to our families, for their students to have those opportunities. I want to dig just a little farther into our SAT data, because we do have 54% of our students taking the SAT. compared to 31% of our students who take the ACT. And so you can see from 2017 to 2024, Los Alamitos High School averaged a 35% increase, while the state had a 1% average increase and the national average decreased by 26 points. So our students are really thriving when it comes to showing their mathematic prowess when we look at national assessment data and we compare our students across the United States of America. We know that this is what opens doors to national merit money, and this is also what opens doors to college admissions for students. We were coming out of the pandemic at a time when many universities were test blind, and now we can see the trend going back to test optional in almost every state other than the state of California currently. And so at Los Alamitos High School, the average math score on the SAT is 92% higher than the state average and 124 points higher than the national average. So there's a lot of good work going on, although we're very aware there's pinpointed groups and targeted areas of math instruction when it comes to looking at our CASP data that we need to pay attention to and come up with a very strategic plan for. When we look at our AP data, it tells us a very similar story. The 5-year average completion of an AP course in mathematics at Los Alamitos High School is 33.5%. A third of our graduating seniors take an advanced placement mathematics course. That's crazy. 33% of our class take an AP in math. We have an 84% passage rate, and this has landed us on the 2024 AP Honor Roll and AP Access Award because we're increasing our access to AP assessments at the same time our passage rate is staying steady or increasing. And so we know that getting a 4, a 3, or a 5 on an AP test in math gives students college credit as entering as a freshman. We also know that the rigor of a student's high school curriculum is one of the single best predictors of college and career success. And we have a third of our students enrolled in an AP class and 84% in math, 84% passing with the 3, 4, or 5. And so when we look at A through G completion, we see a similar story. Right? If we look at ourselves compared to county and state averages of A through G, you can see we're at, for the 23-24 school year, 81.2% of our graduates were completed A through G. We know that the number one reason why students don't complete A through G is non-passing of Algebra 2. So math is a big part of the story when it comes to being A through G compliant. So our 5-year average of A through G completion at Los Alamitos High School is 76%, which is 20% higher than the state average of 56%. So Griffins are 20% more likely to complete Algebra 2 or a higher math course in high school compared to other California graduates. And so we know that students who complete A through G entrance requirements while in high school are twice as likely to graduate from college. So it is a big metric. It's something that's important and that we should be very proud of, the work that our students, our teachers, and our parents do to make these opportunities and possibilities possible. And so I want to kind of talk about our current state of our SMC 2.0, the work that we've been engaged in since the beginning of the school year. So at the close of last school year, we sent out an email and we said, hey, we'd love to get back on the math train. Who wants to join us? And so very pleasantly surprised, 22 members committed to re-engage in this emphasis of professional learning, purposeful conversations, and really review research to positively impact mathematics here in Los Alamitos Unified. So this school year, we've had an after-school kickoff meeting at the beginning of the school year, 4 half days of strategic planning, and we've already completed 1 full day of professional learning, and April 7th, we have our second. The work that we're doing this go-around is really highly rooted in John Hattie's visible learning, the sequence. And so really making sure that as we take our educators' time out of the classroom and we're making decisions about impacting math, that every decision we're considering is very research-based, right? So Hattie and his team have completed over 2,100 meta-analyses that are synthesized. So really, the research in this sequel draws from more than 130,000 studies and involves over 400 million students worldwide as we look at the effect size of choices that we make, both in the logistics, things like scope and sequence, as well as the instructional strategies inside of our classrooms. And so through looking through this, the SMC has come up with 5 essential questions that we're digging into, not just this school year. So we re-engage this year and plan to continue this work as long as teachers are willing to join us. So I think selfishly, these are my best days of the year. I love engaging with math teachers on these days. Our math teachers are exemplary. And they want to do the best that they can for kids. And so seeing them engaged in conversation about data, about research, and really charged up about how to change things, really, I know some people have kindergarten students, but I get the best feeling from teachers when you see them excited about how to change things for kids. And so the 5 questions we're really looking at is continuing to ask the question, what is high quality math instruction? Is my definition different than yours? Do we have a common foundation, language, and vocabulary? When we see it in the classroom, can we identify it? And then does high quality instruction include data analysis? Really, what role does data play in the idea of high quality math instruction? What math skills does a Griffin graduate possess? Or what skills should a Griffin graduate possess when they leave us? That ability to look at those mathematical practices from TK through 12th grade and say, this is the set of skills we want all of our Griffins to graduate with when we look at their mathematical competencies. How do we provide feedback to students? How do students understand themselves as learners? And I think that second part has really come from a lot of conversation about some of our best students not feeling great about learning when they don't get it. Right? It's that pathway again from not knowing to knowing, and how we support students through constructive struggle and resiliency. How do we get all Griffins to take 4 years of math? We're at 64%. We were at 53% previously. How do we get all kids to want to engage in 4 years of math when there's only 2 years of math required for a California high school diploma and 3 years recommended for that A through G completion? And then lastly, what is the relationship between course placement and self-efficacy? Does the course you're enrolled in play a role in how you see yourself as a mathematical thinker? And if it does, how do we impact that? How do we change that for students so we still have students in the right fit while growing mathematically? And so we've been very specific with our professional learning. So although both days have been developed by teachers, they've been purposeful and intentional. So on October 17th, we engaged in a full day of teacher clarity and secondary math instruction led by Dr. Michael McDowell from Hinge Education. And then coming up on April 7th, we'll be looking at high impact feedback strategies as well as real world problem solving applications, also led by Dr. McDonald. And so all of the areas that we're looking at really have a hinge point very high, which really means John Hattie talks about in his work that a hinge point or an effect size of 4.0 or greater is really where you see the influence that accelerates student learning more than the average, or what Hattie calls worth having. He really describes the effect size of 0.4 of being what you would consider the average effect of educational influences in a school year. And when you get over 0.4, those are things worth having. You're getting greater value than you would traditionally see through normal learning in the scope of a school year. When an effect size is below a 4.0, he suggests that that's less effective or has a below average impact. So really that's not where you want to spend your time, your focus, your money, right? Your valuable resource of teachers collaborating around those areas. And so he really talks about that hinge point of 0.4 or higher being a benchmark that educators can use to evaluate teaching strategies and instruction that are likely to make a meaningful difference in student achievement. And so when we look at the topics of our professional learning this year, we started with teacher clarity. That's really kind of been a focus for us as we kicked the school year off district-wide with our administrators with an essential question that we've had to hold ourselves accountable to, and that is, how do we know what our students know? Right? What tells us, what informs us? And so when we kicked off teacher clarity with math this year, it has an effect size of a 0.75. Considered highly impactful. And really when we're talking about teacher clarity, it's about the precision and explicitness with which teachers communicate learning objectives, instructions, expectations, and success criteria to students. That's something all teachers can do, right? That's something we can learn about, we can logistically provide training and protocols for, and we can assure that administrators, as we do this work in the out years, can recognize it, can celebrate successes with it, and support teachers with. As we're moving to April 7th, we really have an impact that we're looking at student feedback and problem solving. And so you can see student feedback has an effect size of 0.73. And so we know effective student feedback is specific, it's timely, it's actionable, and it guides students toward improved performance. So how do we look at those strategies? What does that feedback look like inside a mathematics classroom? And then really the emphasis on problem solving, 0.61. Students are taught how to approach and solve problems systematically, and our teachers really wanted it to connect to real world. They really share anecdotally that one of the things they get asked by students every day is, why am I learning this? I'm never going to use this in the real world. I'm only learning this because I need to pass this class. So really being able to pin together for kids and connect the dots on real-world problem-solving strategies and tools inside the classroom to engage students to see how math is used in the world around them and could pertain to a job or a passion that they may have when they leave us. And so this is super exciting for me to lead this work and to be engaged with our teachers. I'm really lucky they trust me to lead the work, as well as our administrators have displayed an amazing role at igniting these conversations way beyond the days and time that we spend to them. So we'll continue to answer our questions and the outgoing years, provide the board update, and look at relevant data. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the hard work. Thank your teams, the teachers who joined in and have come along with you. I have sort of a pebble in the pond question. So when you do these training days, the math teachers who weren't part of the group or haven't joined it, are they part of those days? And how do they catch up? How do they join in the conversation? How are you building the team when they're not part of all of the trainings?
I love that question because I actually should have woven that in somehow, and I meant to, and then forgot. But the trainings are actually open to all math teachers, not just the SMC. So we invite all math teachers to participate. We had 31 at our last. I think we were missing 6 teachers total, 4 of which are on the early retirement list. And then we have a couple of math teachers that are also part-time and don't work full days or half days. And so how are we going to catch them up? That's a great question. I want to be honest, don't have a great plan at this moment in time because we've really focused this first year on the strategic planning, looking on the research and offering these trainings. We will have to in year 2, which will be next year, roll out a way to share the knowledge with all teachers. So our teams do go back to their department meetings. There'll be the late starts at the high school and share the strategies. We have come up with some common documents that we'll be sharing out at the end of the year that are really a mathematical toolbox of high impact strategies, as well as a mathematical strategy sheet and ways to engage students in the classroom, 612, that the team has developed that we'll be sharing out. But I think it's really difficult to take a whole day of professional learning and try to catch someone up at a staff meeting. So I think it's going to have to be really purposely planned to chunk out information and make it accessible to teachers who don't join us. All of our teachers who are new to the district and in the 5-year professional development plan are automatically enrolled in the SMC, but many of our veterans choose to attend. And so it will be an ongoing, I'd say, problem solving to get teachers who are choosing potentially to not come to a training, to provide ways to incorporate that on potentially PD days that the whole campus is released. And so being able to take the best of what's happening through the SMC and replicate that on our non-student days or late starts for faculty.
I just want to say thank you. That was not in any way a critique. I'm absolutely awestruck by what you're doing. I just, as an educator, past educator, it like kind of hurts my heart. I would be sad to have missed being a part of that and realize what was transpiring in other classes. So I love that you are thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. That was wonderful. And being the most senior on the board at this point in time,
not oldest.
I know how long this work has been going on. I know what a struggle it's been. I know that we tried a bunch of different practices without the support of professional development to begin with. And so when you started the SMC and we decided to have a clean break and to start to go from there, there was such excitement and clarity, and really the pandemic hitting us the way it did, I'm so impressed to see the amount of work that actually did get done during that period of time. And I can only imagine where we could be now if we hadn't lost that time. But I'm just really grateful for that. And also, I also want to say, because we do have newer board members on the board, to understand it takes a long time to move a ship. And I remember when Dr. Kropp was the superintendent, and A through G was such a intentional subject for us to get so many of our students. We were in the mid to low 60 percentile, and to be at 81% is amazing. I remember when we said 100% graduation rate, and nobody thought that was possible. It took 8 years to get there, but it was intentional. And that is what I just want to say I so appreciate about you and your team and Dr. Pulver and the staff, is that when we set that goal, when we have the shared vision of where we want to get, it is intentional the way we go about getting there. It's unfortunate that it does not happen immediately, but we do get there. And so I just want to say thank you very much for this work and continued work, and that we have this many professionals that now are excited about taking it to that next level.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a more personal thing. You're brilliant, first of all. And I'm leaving here tonight on behalf of all the parents out there, grandparents, who have struggling children, but I feel like they're in great hands, and that math can be well done with the guidance of so many caring teachers and your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question going back to you had a slide on the SAT versus AP. And I'm curious, we have a higher rate of students taking the SAT. And I'm curious, the alignment of our instruction, do we feel like we should be encouraging students one way or the other? And is there greater success on the SAT? I know the scores and the ratio of like national, but why the data is where it is, and like what you think.
Well, you only qualify for national merit money through the PSAT SAT program. So it naturally draws almost all students to at least complete the PSAT twice, because you can't be considered for national merit money without participating in the PSAT. The SAT and the ACT really are different exams, and so it calls to different strengths for students. Also, depending upon your major and where you're applying, some universities and some departments prefer a specific set. For example, my daughter's a neuroscience major. The department recommended an ACT score. It's much heavier relying on the math and science on that exam, where SAT shows an equal balance between the linguistics as well as the mathematical side of the house. So I don't think it's that we're aligned to one. I think it's the pathways that students are taking that chooses the assessment that's going to showcase their best strengths and qualities, depending upon the university they're going and the department they're applying to.
Not that we want to encourage students to take more tests.
Right.
They already take a lot.
Yeah.
Would you recommend, or is there a recommendation for students to take the SAT and ACT just because they might do better on one than the other?
So I'm not a college counselor, but I will say that in every briefing I've sat in, every presentation, including some at an Ivy League school, my daughter happened to be in a summer school program, they recommend taking both assessments, taking them early, and finding out the assessment that you feel most comfortable taking, and then taking that one at least 2 times. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I actually want to add to that, if I may. Being a parent of a current junior who is or has participated in the pre-tests, it is actually one of the best things that they can do is take both and see which one really is aligned to how they think and which one they actually do better, and then pursue that. From what I understand, and again, I'm not also a college counselor. I love our career and college department, and I rely on them for a lot of my information. But what I understand is that colleges look at both equally.
Mm-hmm. And many of that data also, we can't tell how much of it is duplicative. So I don't know what part of the 33% is also part of the 54% taking the SAT. I think there are many students who take both.
Okay, and I also have a question and a comment. The slide where you provide the information around the CASP as one data point, and then you also, show us the SAT, ACT, AP, A through G. I think that that's very valuable information. I really appreciate the fact that you also compare it in our county, because I think statewide is a great comparison, but we're such a unique, smaller community, and but looking at the county, that data speaks heavily to me. I would love to even see going forward to maybe look at some of the districts that are more like us in terms of size and see how we fare compared to them in our scoring. But I do like the fact that, and I appreciate all the work that that you went through and the team has gone through to provide this information, that, the CASP was just one data point. And the fact that as a junior, it doesn't really align with instruction, I think hit a chord. But it would just be so much more, I feel like, meaty for me if I could also see it with like some of the other districts that are similar in size in our county. But also looking at the motivation factor of students around the SAT and the ACT and the AP classes, and how that can help kind of paint a more accurate picture. I thought it was a really excellent point. So I appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this and the work that this took, because it's hugely valuable. And I'll end with this. I also appreciate the fact that we as a district don't rest on our laurels, and we don't say, well, we're the top, X, Y, and it doesn't matter. But we really then go back and say, okay, no, but we know we can do better, and we invest. We provide the collaboration opportunities and the intervention opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver.
I was just going to add that the state has, since CAS has come into play, before that, many of you will recall a STAR, and they've actually made it much more difficult to compare one district to another. When it was STAR data, we could easily find what a district's math data was, or a particular high school, et cetera. Under the CAS system, it gets much more difficult. And I think they haven't, even the AP data from last year, we just got a few weeks ago when you attended the College Board AP spring data. So a little late in that sense as well. So they make it a little more challenging for us at times now to try to compare. Remember, the state used to have a whole similar schools ranking as well. And so you'd have a 10-10, an 8-10, this, that, whatever. So that's just makes another metric a little bit more difficult. So, but yes, I really want to just echo what Mrs. Reed was sharing about the caliber and the dedication and the professionalism of our teachers, who are voluntarily coming together to really build the synergy from a 6-12 perspective in the scope of mathematics. And even though I think you actually get much more quality work when teachers are doing that on their own volition, and because you're going to see them want to be able to make the changes enacted directly into their classrooms, because we can send someone to a training all day long, but if they really don't want to be there, we may not see the fruits of it. And it reminds me of a video we used to show at our leadership years ago about how do you create a movement. And it was you need at least one lone nut to follow you. And then the lone nut gets other people to follow, et cetera. And that's kind of how I see the secondary math collaborative. Now, there's many lone nuts in that room because there are a bunch of math teachers. I'm teasing. But the fact that we have 22 this year who are really across the spectrum from middle school to high school in all facets of math instruction, dedicated to really want to take a look at this, I think it will get other people to come on board. Already, you heard Mrs. Reed say, yeah, there's 22, but there's almost 31 who attended the professional development in the fall. That was separate just for math, not part of our PD day. And we also brought Mr. McDowell to the PD day at the high school. They were focused, it was all on teacher clarity through that PD day. And now we have just shy of just under 30 math teachers on the April 7th day. So, and more could still be influenced to come. We won't turn them away. So,
Thank you. I love that when new teachers come on, they jump right in. Oh, thank you. So now we're going to move on to the development of a board policy on student use of mobile communication devices and cell phones. Dr. Pulver?
Thank you, Madam President. I just will set the stage briefly, but really the portion of today's topic is to be able to hear from the board. I recall in the summer, it was obviously a different board, but in the summer when the board evaluated, part of my evaluation, one of the key feedbacks that they had given me in the evaluation was to work this year on developing a district cell phone policy right before the state had actually passed the law. And so they said to work with staff and work with families. And this is one of the areas in which we're developing. So in the late August, or soon after, or I'll get there in a second, I apologize. So California in the late summer, did end up passing the Phone Free Schools Act, which requires school districts by July 1 of 2026 to implement some type of board policy that restricts cell phone use. It doesn't ban it, it just uses the word restriction. And then in the law, it also says that parents and educators, we must allow students to use their phones in the case of an emergency or in a response to a perceived threat or danger, or as allowed by teacher, administrator, or doctor for students to individualize if they're under an IEP and they have reasons to have an accommodation for particular uses, et cetera. So as a district, we have actually restricted cell phone use at our school sites before the state required that, but we don't have a written policy. So CSBA, which is the California School Boards Association, which helps draft school board policies and provides the legal guidance, et cetera, has just recently released this, I think it was March 4th, March 11th. So it's very timely. Just released their updated board policy in light of the updated law by the legislature. And in their policy, they really give boards two options to play with, and they're still very loose. I want to remind you, policies are vague in nature, but it's really about how we implement it. And sometimes some policies have regulations that really says this is the how of it. So tonight, what I hope is that we will hear from the board is how to develop a cell phone policy that we hope, that I know you also hope, that we would implement for the start of the school year, of the 25-26 school year. And then we would be able to work with our families, with our staff, with a communication plan, et cetera. Because while we've had restrictions, as I've shared back, and I'll share some of the brief slides that we had back in August, there is lack sometimes. We haven't been consistent across those restrictions. And I think what really helps, what I've heard from our administrators, is we've probably had this conversation with administrators, probably 3 different meetings in the course of this year, and shared that parents are divided. At times they get a lot of parent support for restriction of cell phones, and they get some pushback from families at the same time. And same from staff. And I don't really think it's that staff don't want it. It's how much can they restrict in their classroom, and what are they willing to kind of turn a blind eye to. And so I know our administrators have said, I think it's also helpful to have a formalized policy that puts a little bit more emphasis. I don't want to say teeth, but emphasis that this is something that we're all in together. And so just real quickly, we had shared, just to help launch some of the conversation, these were slides from a superintendent's report I'd given in the fall, and I'm going to go over them quickly. But our current practices on paper at our K-8 sites is that at our elementary schools, they're allowed to technically have a device, but they can't be used or seen during school hours. And so many of the schools might have some type of this, what you see an example of a cell phone or a smartwatch holder, which they would have students put it in the pocket when they come into the classroom. And then slightly different at the high school. Again, the high school, and I would say over 70% of the classrooms I see regularly use these types of charts for students to be able to put their devices in. But the high school's policy in their student handbook currently is different. It really focuses on the instruction that they shouldn't be having them access to cell phones during the class period, but that they can use their devices in passing periods, in nutrition, and at lunchtime. And so again, we have these pocket charts. Again, as I shared earlier, it's really about consistency as well of trying to make a look at that. What we've heard from different parents, I had a great PTA council meeting on Monday, and I know I won't steal anybody's thunder because we had 2 board members who were present, but had a great discussion with our PTA presidents and other people who were there about, I shared with them that the board was going to be really unpacking this. This is the first time the board gets to really talk about this. They're subject to the Brown Act, and so they haven't been able to dialogue. And today is really just the first of, I'm sure, of other conversations that they'll have in helping us develop what that policy should be, and then giving staff or myself to work with staff direction. So as we always talk about, the board really sets the what, sets the vision, and then it's staff's job to really get into the weeds and figure out how are we going to be able to implement that as we come about. And so we did some parent education nights as well that I'm going to skip through. So I'm going to turn it now back over to you, Mrs. Davidson.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver, for giving clarity to that. So we will begin the discussion. I think we can assume that obviously if we have policies, we want to bring clarity to them. And probably the 2 most obvious camps are, would we ban cell phones completely in terms of breaks, lunch, all the time, or would we restrict them in the classrooms and allow the students to have them in between class? And it also, we have to consider and talk about how we would apply it differently at an elementary level or an elementary and secondary, middle school level, and how we would apply it all the way through to high school. So who would like to begin? For not Mrs. Bartizani? Oh, go ahead.
I actually just to get it started, I appreciate you kind of leading with that, because I know for me, as I broke apart CSBA's policy, for me, I would feel comfortable breaking into kind of an elementary, middle school as one group and high school in another group. And I don't know how we want to have that conversation. For me, I feel like they have to be treated very differently between elementary, middle, and high school. I think high school is its own beast in terms of how we treat it. It's an open campus, just the nature of that. So I know I have thoughts on what that would look like. I also want to just, to open that to the board to just see, do we even want to, is there a consideration of considering elementary, middle school as lumped together, separating them? We could see elementary, middle, and high school seen all separately. In my vision, I saw elementary, middle together.
Yeah, sure. You're asking for us to comment. Yeah, sure. I absolutely see K through 8 as one category. I think that it's really good that it's a good step that we have actually 9 policies currently at each of our sites. But I also think that gives us an opportunity, and I'm really glad we're having this discussion tonight, that we can may have more of an overarching uniform policy at the district level that is not necessarily unique to each school, but it's something that we strive for as a district. I really appreciate that. But I'm also, I think that what it seems to me, those policies at the site level seem to not necessarily or be consistently maybe publicized and enforced. And I think that's a really key point that I just want to emphasize, and I know Dr. Pulver did as well, is enforcement of the policy. That's where education and really communication to our students, our parents, and our teachers and staff will be critical. To your point, Matt, I think that K through 8, is something where I would really want to talk and hope that we as a board can consider that there should absolutely be no phones. And if a child has a mobile device, mobile communication device that is put away bell to bell all day. At the high school, I understand, having a high school student myself and the different roles that the students play, I would be open to hearing and having more flexibility at that level. And I just think that, for me, I'm just so glad that we're having this conversation, because it's just clear from research, whatever we end up with, research tells us that mobile communications, access to them in a school setting, is just has negatively impacted our students, both from an academic perspective and a social emotional development. So this is a really excellent conversation. I'm glad we're taking the time to have it.
Mr. Forhan?
Yeah, no, I agree, Fernaz. I think K-8 is a different beast, and I think the high school needs some more flexibility with that. And I like the option one, limited use of smartphones and other mobile communication devices. But I also like the idea that we've got time in the beginning of the school year to see it, make sure it's consistent among all classrooms, but it's time to, come on, kids, we got to deal with this. And we're hoping that parents will be on our side and reinforce the fact that K-8, they stay in their backpacks, and high school can access them during nutrition, but not in the classroom.
I think I'm a little different. So, and I started this conversation about a year and a half ago. And so to me, I believe they should completely be banned. We can certainly talk about it. We talk about the difference at high school compared to middle school and elementary school. Middle school and elementary school, we have students that are much more compliant. They are probably and hopefully have restrictions on their phones. I feel when we get to high school, when we look at the impact, just like Panache said, about the social and emotional impact that is having students, to be able to have a student have a free zone of 6 hours possibly where they don't have to worry about what is going on, what is somebody saying, what is somebody posting, what has somebody taken a picture of me doing, what is being done in the bathroom. And I don't believe I'm probably going to win on this, but I'm going to have my voice heard. In that I believe that I asked like 10 hours ago, if we have any data on how many disciplinary actions are coming from mobile devices, how much bullying is being done on mobile devices, how much of this, and I'm not saying it would eliminate it, but to me, it eliminates the area or the time when they're all together, and a lot of those things are being captured. A lot of those things aren't being, maybe they don't have parents that maybe when they're home, their parents are restricting it more. I don't know. And I'll be honest, you know, my children are 35 and 37. This is not something I deal with actively. I know the rest of you do. And, you know, back in my day, we had one cell phone and it was given to my kids when I left them at the golf course so they could call me, right? So it didn't have this kind of impact, but we have to start trying to reverse this at some point in time. It is really harming our students. And I don't know if we're the ones to do it. I don't know if it's the right place. But I also see when we talk about also having the policies and not being enforced, we already have the policy at the high school. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked into classrooms or events or whatever the case may be, and there are kids with their earpods or their earphones in. How can we expect them to be truly engaged in the moment if they're doing that? And so, like I said, I doubt, because I also know our community, and our community wants to be able to contact their children 24/7. I can understand that, but I think in some ways it would be a gift to give to our kids that for 6 or 7 hours, you don't have to deal with this. You have to deal with where you are, being present, and at the moment.
You know,
those are my thoughts.
Thank you. So I absolutely agree about the damage that's being done, and it isn't not only the bullying, it's the social emotional skills that students are lacking. My cousin is a college professor who says students come in as freshmen at major universities and they can't sit and make eye contact and carry on a conversation. So Dr. Pulver and I were walking through the quad the other day at the high school, and these kids are really much more coordinated and skilled than me because they can go up and down stairs looking at their phones, and it's literally impossible, I think, for some of them to let go. What I do believe is that there can be no, from my perspective, and I was a teacher for 25 years, we need to, I would like to see us clearly define that phones are not acceptable as a tool for research or anything else in a classroom, that we don't give any, well, maybe ifs, that we say that they're gone. I was in the fire science class last week for 3 periods observing, and he has on his board, he projects the agenda. The top of the agenda is cell phones in pockets. Yeah.
We were there together.
Yeah, cell phones in pockets, and that he takes attendance. That could be a problem, but that they're in the pockets and they stay in the pockets, and it's very visible. You can't sneak yours out, and that you don't get to take them until you're walking out the door. And it was very effective. I saw four classes come and go. They put them in, they left them alone, and they had a lot of opportunities in that class because it was a hands-on. They were crawling through the room, simulating a fire, and they could have easily been on phones if they had them, but the kids were engaged in the exercise and what was going on. It's better learning. But as a teacher, I think Dr. Pulver pointed out, we need clearly defined rules. We can't, LAUSD is taking a position of letting the schools decide, and there are schools that are on an honor system. You know what? I was a teenager. It's a sociopathic time in your life where you're figuring out what works best, and you can't. The honor system isn't going to work because if we're honest, how many of us make it through a dinner or a meeting without pulling out our phones and looking at them? So we can't expect teenagers to do that either. So I believe that we do need to absolutely restrict them, not allow them during class hours. I think that if we wanted to say they're gone from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, that's a logistics problem when you have almost 3,000 students at the high school. That we have to figure out. Plus, I watched Dr. Livingston send us an email with a video. I watched the video in a school that is doing it in Montana. They have only 500 high school students. Has the phones put away for each period, but they can take them at lunch because they drive off campus and they need to be able to communicate. And I think that's going to be an argument we would have a difficult time fighting. So
I think I would like to add to that, Mrs. Marlis Davidson. I think that it's critical, and maybe to clarify, and I'm really happy to hear all of you say that the non-negotiable point is no cell phones during instruction, period, regardless of which level you sit, whether you're an elementary age student, shouldn't be allowed at all, middle school or high school. Absolutely, I think that those cell phone pockets can be effective at the high school if all teachers use them and enforce that policy. So I think for me, the non-negotiable part comes during instruction because we know that with that amount of distraction, that there's nothing you can learn.
I think Ms. Partisani, one of the things is even about, and this is the craziness of a policy like this, is the semantics, right? And so like one of my notes before this meeting was about instructional time. And I think it's not instructional time, it's classroom time. Because instructional time, we have visited classes at the high school where teachers are saying, my instruction is done, do what you want. Or you finished your homework, you can go on your phone. And so instructional time, I don't know how we're defining that, but if a teacher says, well, I finished my lesson in 35 minutes, or you did great on your homework, you passed the test, they're doing a retake, go on your phone, that doesn't set a precedent, and that creates that same level of anxiety for the students that are not on it. Do they want to finish their test earlier so they can get on them? So, I mean, I completely agree with, I would just, this comes to more the what and the how, right? And so I think the part of that is any class time or school focus activities. I wonder, and this is thinking out loud as part of this discussion, is that also include when we have things like Griffin games? Are those things where phones should be out or should they not be out? I don't know. And that's part of the question of like when there are activities in the gym, we have intramurals, things like that. I'll go back to the beginning of the conversation and say, I think, and I'm not to speak for the rest of the group, but I heard some consistency around K-8, just no. It's just a hard no. And I think that for me is something I would wholly support as a parent of a fifth grader who is feeling anxiety with very limited access to technology. And that anxiety of being the one that doesn't is not healthy. I just don't think it's good for her, and feeling like she's left out and knowing the kind of messages that go back and forth. So I would say just from the get-go, if coming to K-8, no. High school, I dream of what you're talking about, Ms. Hill. I truly do. I struggle with especially the size of the campus, the open campus, students leaving. The logistics are hard. The former teacher, former principal in me says the consistency is so important. And how do we ensure consistency on that scale? And I almost wonder, is it something where we have to work up to that? Is it something where we have to think about how do we get there? Because if teachers and principals and assistant principals and security are chasing kids around during nutrition time or lunchtime, are they actually doing their jobs? Are they actually keeping the campus secure and safe? And I have to figure out a balance of like, is chasing the kid that's on their phone that's actually not doing anything disruptive, which I wish they weren't on it, but is that creating another issue somewhere else on campus? And so it's a balance. I 100% wish I could support you in that. And at the same time, I don't know how to do it is my problem.
Right. And I appreciate something that you said, and it just made me think. The anxiety, because all parents, once again, have a right to set the rules in their own home for the students and what they do. And so when they do that, there are some students that get very limited access. There are some students you're not going to get a phone until you're in 8th grade or whatever that case may be. And so I once again like that idea that we're giving that student that freedom. It's kind of like when we do drug testing at the high school, and we talk to our students about it and we say, I'm going to put you on the drug testing list because then that gives you a way to be able to say no in front of your peers, right? And so if there are no phones, we'll take K-8, we'll break it down, take K-8, and we say there are no phones allowed during school time, then that helps those students that don't have cell phones not feel that anxiety when their friends next to them are taking them out at lunchtime. And so I like that you also framed it that way. I think that's a good solution, and it's a good solution that we can also try to frame for parents, because I know that this is going to be a really big topic in our community and we don't all feel the same way about it. So it's once again finding that healthy compromise to get us to.
I think something else that we haven't talked about yet is in the CSBA proposed policy that you shared. There's a part that's optional at the bottom. And it says a student may also be subject to discipline in accordance with law, board policy, or administrative regulation for use off-campus use of mobile communication devices. And I think that's another part that I would say we need to make sure that that's across the board. That's a K-12 piece for me, because the reality is there's the issues of use on campus, but we know so much of that goes home. The bullying, the mental health threats to our students. And so I actually, in that, it talks about that mobile communication devices which pose a threat or danger to the safety of students fall under this policy in this optional piece. I actually think that having that, even adding language around danger to the mental or physical health of students is important, because the physical damages can be damaging, but the mental health damage can be equally damaging. And I think so much of what we see use on campus is hurting kids, but use at home with things that are based on campus, things that are happening, those types of messages should also be a part of that. And I think that also, I would have to look to the district leadership. This might be Mr. Friedman, Dr. Pulver, to talk about just like where ed code lays on there, because cyberbullying, things like that are very real, and that's related to this policy. If we're not encompassing that within this policy and making sure that we address it, I think a lot of parents think, well, my kid's not on campus, it is what it is. But we all know that if a kid gets bullied on the way to school physically and gets in a fight, they can still be suspended from school even if it's not on campus. If it's to or from school, that falls under ed code policy that we have.
It does. There where a lot of these issues with social media or cell phone issues can happen, where I've heard some incidences in the past. I'll just give real examples of that occurring. They were at St. Hedwig's Carnival. And they were exchanging and did some stuff on their cell phone to another individual, or they're at home on a Friday evening or a Saturday morning, etc. And so for us, there always is a legal lens of where does that constitute a district response. We can always influence, meet with parents, given the try to create restorative practices between the two or multiple parties. But what lens do we have? It has to then have a nexus back to the school site. Has that created material disruption? And often, depending upon the type of cyberbullying or situation that could have occurred, it can, but it doesn't always. So it gets nuanced. Like it's not a black white. There's a lot of layers that we have to peel to decide in that area. So in that optional paragraph that I did outline for you guys from CSBA, some districts that have already passed a policy before the more recent update, I've seen them all include that. That's actually already our current practice. Like I said, most of what is within a policy is already part of our practice. What I would like to get from all of you, and I don't think we have clarity yet, so I think there's more discussion, but what some of you are talking about when you're saying no cell phones K-8, I just want to remind you, in theory, that is our current practice at our middle schools and our elementary schools. And already I hear from some of you, from parents and from others, is that that's not really enforced in the same manner. And so I would hope that whatever we end up deciding is that it is very difficult to be a teacher who's teaching their class, who's trying to monitor, let's take of a middle school level. If I'm teaching mathematics and I might have 2 or 3 different math groups, I'm having to adjust my classroom room environment. I'm dealing with maybe small group instruction. If I'm a teacher working with these 4 groups of students, I can't always see every single second what these 4 students are doing. And if they have a cell phone, even though we say no cell phone, and they pull it out of their backpack, I don't want, what I worry is if we don't put a little bit more behind it, then the burden becomes on the teacher to enforce it. And when complaints occur from other parents or from board members or wherever, then the burden is back on teachers. So what I've seen districts do, so I wanted you to be mindful of this, is some districts where they have that absolutely no cell phone, because I want to make sure whatever you think is right for this community, is they literally have purchased devices of some sort where a kid or a student puts their phone in like a magnetic pouch or a magnetic thing in the beginning of the day, whether maybe they go to their first period. Some LA Unified districts are doing that. So they'll go to their first period class, pick the second period, whatever, lock their cell phone in some magnetic device, and then they don't have access to it for the whole day until they leave, and they'll go back to their first period or go back to their second period for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. That does take away instructional minutes just because you have to build that into the schedule. B, as we unpacked a little bit with PTA families, and I know some of you have brought this up, what do we do for a student who shows up to school at 3rd period because they went to a dentist appointment? Now they go interrupt their first period class, which is where they do that, or if they come home 3rd period. So all of these are things that we can do. I just want to make sure when we say no, that is our current policy, and what you're telling me already is that's not working. So then we'll have to work with staff, no problem, to figure out how to do that. But I want you to be mindful of what that could be, and does that fit our needs as well?
Do you feel, just quick question, I'm saying, do you feel it's not working?
I hear mixed messages. So I think at elementary, I don't see it as big of an issue. What we probably see, what I hear from our administrators and teachers, is really more the smart device.
I noticed 3 kids in that video had that on. Yeah,
having a smart watch, and the policy through CSBA, it was really talking about mobile communication, not just cell phones, which would be, a watch, et cetera. I've heard from some families who they do that because they want to track their kid. How did their kid walks home from school, and they want to make sure, how did their kid walk home, et cetera, get to school? Did they ever get to school, et cetera? I do see it still not a consistent practice at middle school to some degree, and then at the high school, it's about 70% in classrooms. I could almost tell you by department who effectively uses the cell phone pocket charts. That being said, we also know in various articles I've read since even before this year is we also know students have used dummy phones. Parents will provide students dummy phones at times as well. Rather than trading in their old phone to get a new phone, they'll just use, if we had to turn a phone into a magnetic pouch and lock it up for the day, I'll turn my dummy phone that I never use into this pouch. So I have my real phone that if I need to down the road. That won't be all kids, I want to be clear, but will kids outsmart us? Absolutely. Any rule that is on a campus, we know students and adolescents, that's part of their growth and development is to test the boundaries and things. So we know that could occur. That shouldn't necessarily stop us, but I think we have to have our eyes wide open in that. But other than putting the burden back on teachers and administrators to do the no cell phone, I don't know if I see a clear way other than, and I'm open and we will unpack it more as staff if that is the direction of the board, other than seeing these types of ways to turn in your phone into some magnetic pouch, et cetera, or some locked device or something. And then in doing so, you would take up some instructional minutes.
The problem with that I have is that at the middle school level, they've worked very hard on instructional minutes. We've upended our from 7 periods down to 6 periods, taken core from 2 periods to 1 period in order to protect instructional minutes in math, science, and all of the classes. So to take time for teachers to be responsible, to police all of this, to me, if we say there can't be phones, then they have to have the pouches. I've read about the magnetic devices. They're millions of dollars to buy for whole schools, and the kids learn how to break them. But besides that, I mean, I think the pockets are good. Now, the pockets create a problem at the middle school level because do we let them take them? Do they leave them from first period to sixth? Then you need time at the beginning of first and the end of sixth for them to pick them up. But if a sick kid goes to the office, are we going to have to send people out to get them? I think they have to be taken, but I think they need to be taken in the classrooms from the beginning of a period to the end of the period, unless we can come up with a solution to where they're taken that doesn't deprive us consistently deprive us of instructional minutes we fought so hard for. The wristwatches, the iPhone or whatever they're called, the watches.
Apple Watch, but there's
Apple Watch.
Yeah, smartwatches.
Smartwatches. Those need to be confiscated too, except I do think at some point, I don't want to get into the weeds, kindergarten, first and second grade, those parents put them on to track their kids. Kids aren't bullying, they're not messaging. Parents are probably calling them, which we could hold parents accountable for. But as a kindergarten teacher, I can't imagine taking 25 watches at the beginning of a day and putting 25 watches back on little wrists again. And how many kids are going to walk out of the room without their watches, and parents. So there's
Why can't
details.
they use an air tag?
We can evolve this policy. We can figure out what works and doesn't work, and we can always come back and revise it as it goes. But it's complicated. Middle school, I'm not sure about. I'd like to hear what.
Can I ask a question? Just a question. So around watches, because I'm glad you brought watches up, because I think watches do need to be treated the same, and I think you see the watches as an issue. I would push back on the younger ones, because the reality is they don't need to be tracked. Our kids, we were not tracked when we were in elementary school. They are in kindergarten. You drop them off at the beginning of the day. You have them. They're in the kindergarten. They get checked in. They get checked out. If you aren't sure where your kid is in the middle of the day, call the office. That's what parents can do. We used to have payphones. We used to have pagers. We figure out ways to do it. But like, if you want to reach your kid and they're in kindergarten in the middle of the day, you can call the office. Are they still in the room? The runners that you have at the beginning of the year, we know who they are, and you can track them down pretty easily as a former principal. But like, leaving them on a kindergartner because you want to know where they are. I heard you say, Miss Hill, air tag, sure, you want to throw an air tag in their pocket because you really want to know where they are, but You dropped them off at McGaw, you dropped them off at Rossmore. They're in their class until you hear otherwise. And I hate that we're living in a world where people don't always feel that confident, but they have to have some confidence in us. If not, I wonder if this public school setting is the right setting. I'd just be totally transparent and honest. If you don't feel like you can drop your kid off and know that you're going to pick them up at the end of the day, as a parent, I know we all have our anxiety when we drop our kids off, but like, you shouldn't need to be looking at, maybe that's the parents need to be wondering why they have to check on their kid every 5 minutes on the Find My iPhone. But the watches do have to be treated the same. And I think those are harder to enforce. They're smaller, but they do the same thing. They're still disruptive. You can still do a lot of the same things on an Apple Watch or a Samsung watch, whatever it is.
Yeah, you can do less social media, which is what some of the push regarding cell phone use on youth and the anxious generation, et cetera, that I know a lot of people have referenced in the past. So it's largely text messaging per se and a phone call, but it still does have that piece to it. So.
Is there any liability? That's the other thing I'm curious about. I mean, if we are locking up, I just want to look at all options. If we're locking up, some of these devices cost $1,000 and we're locking up, however many students.
Well, I think I think the policy from CSBA certainly would advocate that you would add district is not responsible, blah, blah, blah. Does that nothing stop someone from suing? And even sometimes in a lawsuit, you settle because it's more expensive to fight the law, even when you think you're right, than it is to settle. So I think those could still be unknowns. And then I guess what I would ask for too, when we say K-8, what I would say is right now, I don't think we're consistent, is having the students put their phones or their devices, I should say, in a pocket chart of sorts in a classroom when they first walk in. That I think some of our classes do it and some don't. And I would hope that whatever we end up planning based upon the feedback from the board, we would implement that. So you could devise a no cell phone policy K-8 that would do more of that system of what I showed you. I just want to be clear with you, that makes policing it during passing period and lunch harder. We could still say that's the honor system. We see it, we tell you this. Short of, I don't know how this community would react if we say that we're going to put their devices in this magnetic device that they're not going to have access to at any time. I don't know the impact of the instructional minutes, et cetera. So I think if that was a policy the board wanted, we'd have to, would you be okay with having every classroom have those pocket devices that they absolutely have to put them in there in passing period? They have to take it and put that in the next period from period 2 to period 3. And the message is they shouldn't be out during passing periods. And of course, to the best of our ability, we'll monitor that, short of this locked device in whatever type of pouch, locker, et cetera thing. But could there be a possibility of a kid using it in the restroom? Because we don't have someone in every restroom, policing that. Yeah, so I just would want to make sure you're aware that even though we say that, could something else happen? Yes, and then of course, just like with any law or rule, we respond. I mean, I think I gave an analogy to some of you in the past. There's a clear law that we can't speed on the freeway past 65 miles per hour, but we know many people drive 70, 75, and sometimes you get caught and sometimes you don't. And so that very well could happen too with whatever we implement here, regardless of whatever policy we do. But I just think we've got to be mindful of what we want to accomplish, what we think our community, and put less of the enforcement burden as much as possible on teachers and administrators. But they do have to play a role. I'm not saying that, but I mean and I think that's where I think, the pockets, if they do, could be a good step with that and making sure that that's consistent.
So we do need to separate then.
I have a couple of things, just a couple of points. I do think that in the beginning of the year, where we had the meeting and we talked about, cell phone policy, the law came into effect in California, that there was a lot I saw, because, I have a position in, I have a child in every level, and I saw an improvement. When it starts to get a little lax and it's not as consistently enforced is where we see a challenge, especially at the middle school level. So I think that, I kind of go back to what I said originally. I think that having an overarching policy from a district level showing that we want to prioritize learning, we want less distraction, we want more focus, we understand the negative impacts on academics and learning. We want, we stand by our administrators and our teachers to enforce, and we support them, and we have clear enforcement policies. I feel like that would go a long way. I have a hard time telling my middle schooler, you are absolutely not to be on your phone, and yet you walk into a classroom and you have to take it out and put it in a pouch. And then I can see that when she takes it out of that pouch between passing periods, inevitably, human nature, you're going to look at it. And I want to eliminate that. I want to eliminate that for my daughter. I want to eliminate it for all students, that it is put away in a backpack, however way you want to do it. I really would like to stay away from taking away instructional minutes. I think that we've worked really hard and we value every single minute. So I don't want to add that. And I know that we're in a position that we can't add millions of dollars of costs either. So I think that we have to rely heavily on communication with our students, with our staff, with our parents, to help them see the value in this, to help support us in this effort. And it's really, having a very clear policy that doesn't come out. I drop you off, you take the bus, you enter the campus, that phone is put away until the bell rings and you're leaving the campus. And if I see it, there's a consequence. And if I think that if we we stick to that, I feel like the culture will really start to embrace it. And I don't see as much of an issue in elementary. I don't think I think that we're okay, that, and the teachers have been great and the kids have been great because they know that that's a policy. So if they do have a smartwatch or a phone, it's in the backpack, and I see it because I see the bell ring, and then they get their smartwatches out and they put it on and they walk home. So again, I kind of go back to what is realistic and what we can implement. And again, having the grace for ourselves and our community to know that it's fluid, that if we see that something's not working, that we have the ability to come back, we listen to our parent community, and we can come back and we can revise it. A couple of things I want to say. I'm really glad that we're not calling it a cell phone policy, that we're calling it a mobile communication policy, because it includes wireless communication devices, anything that's internet accessible, that includes smartwatches and iPads. But then also, I really want to emphasize that the policy should include strict rules related to privacy in the bathrooms and the locker rooms and our dressing areas. I think that becomes, again, a very important point for our middle school and high school students.
Ms. Partisani, I think I love that, because especially thinking about the ability to actually patrol a locker room in places like that. These private areas are private and adults are not in those places. We are not, as staff, in the bathrooms where students are. So they need to be very clear that they're not to be used in those places. I think that the idea of off and out of sight at elementary schools is important, right? Like however that language is written. I also do think, though, putting pouches in every elementary classroom, a lower cost option, but it's an option that a student that feels like the backpack isn't their safe place, if they want to leave, elementary kids are with their same teacher from the start of the day to the end of the day. So if my daughter wants to keep it in her backpack, but another child or a parent says, I want you to put it in that pouch every morning, but you pick it up at the end of the day, I think that it has to be an option at the very least. Because I think from a security standpoint, and we know about the liability and things like that, my child puts her Apple Watch in when she gets to school in her backpack. I wish she didn't. I'm wondering what day it's going to disappear. And so I wish that she would put it in a pouch, but I don't think there's a pouch as an option. So I think that's give students the option, also make sure those options are discussed before school, back to school night, all those things, so that parents can help have those conversations. Because I think that, again, we're trying to figure out different ways to reduce anxiety, and anxiety manifests itself in so many ways and for so many different reasons for these students. So let's try and give them options at least, but options that it's removing that as even being available.
Andrew, what I'm hearing anyway is that we would like you to go back to staff and say, if we were to say, no, you put it in your backpack the beginning of the day, K-8, you don't take it out till afterwards. Maybe there's things they might want to suggest that some can do the pouch or not. And then the high school, I mean, have we talked to them what they're thinking might work other than consistency across the, all grade levels, classes?
I think it's really that. At least we would have to make a lot of changes at the high school if we were going to expect them to not be able to have it out. Our students are overly involved in so many great ways, connected outside of academics to athletics, activities, the arts. Currently, many of our coaches or directors of programs might communicate through a Remind app that they have a practice all of a sudden. It might be 10 o'clock in the morning or something. So all of that's doable, but we'd have to really change how we communicate to students. And then I don't know how you would effectively monitor. We don't have enough campus supervisors, enough administrators, et cetera, in passing periods to tell students to put their phone away, unless we had a system in which their devices were locked up from the very get-go.
I think a question, and this is where the nuances are so wild, is to think about, like, we have students in yearbook, we have students in ASB, we have students that use phones during instructional time because it's part of what they're doing. It's part of their journalism. So I think just having those conversations still and talk to the high school about what that looks like, because we have to be consistent. So if it's no phone devices during instructional time, class time, that might mean journalism. That might mean yearbook. And so are we giving them, I remember we used to have to buy our kids those little, what were those flip cameras? Like, oh gosh, that makes me feel even old. But like, if they have to have iPod touches or something else, I don't even know if those exist anymore, but something so that students can still do what they need to do if it's part of their class, but it doesn't give them that temptation of I'm pulling out my cell phone. And I don't know what that looks like. You have a student in ASB. I don't know if she uses her phone as part of her ASB duties. I would imagine it does come up, or journalism and things like that. So, but then how do you say, well, in that class, you can use your phone, but in this class, you can't. So we have to find consistency. And ultimately, staff have to know that consistency is going to be on them. They are going to be the enforcers. We don't want them to be the cell phone police, but the reality is they'll be accountable if they're allowing students to do things they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely ways we could help bypass having the need to use a cell phone in those classes. For example, in yearbook, I know that there's lots of activities and some, the kids are responsible for documenting those activities, but then maybe the onus comes to us as a district where we purchase cameras. And those kids whose job is to, the camera stays in the classroom. And if your job is to take pictures of certain activities, that's the camera that you use. And then we have, ways to download those photos. Or if as part of ASB, your role is to, document a certain activity, again, we can kind of work around and see how we did it before cell phones. It wasn't that long ago. I was part of the yearbook committee and I didn't have a cell phone, and I was able to effectively capture, very special moments in my high school. So I think that we can, I appreciate that we're talking about the what, and I would love to partner and work with the district on the how. But I think we have some really creative minds, and we can work it out so we really help send a consistent message. And again, I keep going back to how important it is for instructional effectiveness, where we don't have any distractions, that we keep our kids focused in the classroom.
Yeah, I don't think that you can have gray areas. I agree. I like your idea of buying the cameras, whatever is necessary, because it just becomes too hard for one teacher to enforce it when the child was able to use his or her phone in another class. Teachers have to know, and their accountability is the fact that no class is allowed to use phones. So my class can't, my substitute can't. We walked into the high school class the other day, and half the class was on cell phones, and it was a substitute who was told when they get done with their work, let them go on their phones. So it can't, I don't think there can be gray areas. Otherwise, it's just not enforceable.
So I'd like to try to make sure have we built any consensus yet? So let's unpack K8. What I'm hearing is K8, in the CSBA sample policy, it's really about no cell phones during the school day use, which is in theory what our current restriction is printed in all of our student handbooks. And then we're going to have to find a way, work with staff as what is a better way to make sure that we enforce that. And however we enforce that, whatever ways that we come up with. Again, I want to protect the burden of, well, yes, I think teachers have to have a role in it, but I don't think it can be on the backs of them as well with everything else that they're teaching. And yes, I think we can also have, consequences for students, but I would hope that we're also not trying to create so many consequences that now students are this is their 5th time, their 6th time, and now they're getting progressive discipline, and now it's a suspension, a detention, or Saturday school, things of that sort. So we'll have to work on mechanisms there. Is that clear? Is that the direction that I'm hearing from the 5 board members? K8 right now.
So are we saying that in middle school that there are no cell phones out? I mean, are we going to take them away, or are we? What about passing period lunch? Are we going to take them away, or just say you cannot have a cell phone? And I mean, I think they have to take them away in class.
Yeah, right? I think what will be us, but what I think I'm hearing from you is you don't, in that I don't believe that you are saying that we should be spend all this money in these locked magnetic devices, and we shouldn't have a system that takes away instructional minutes. And so with that does then give us some parameters. It might not be a 100% foolproof, no cell phones, but other than what we say and then how we enforce it. So that's what I'm hearing K8. And of course, and I know some of these conversations we've had, I've had one-on-one with different individual board members. Absolutely.
Dr. Pulver, but for the K8, I think having the option, I mean, and whether, again, the pouches, but even at the middle school level, and I don't know the logistics of this, but having if a student wants to have their phone and they know they're tempted, making sure that there's some system, whether it's in the middle school offices, that a student can drop it off, check in at the beginning of the day, like a cell phone hotel or something like that. Is that an option that we can discuss with them?
I think we'll have to figure that out. We may still choose to use a pocket or not, because I'll have to get more feedback from our administrators and teachers. What I've heard from some right now is, even though that's our current practice, the reason it's not consistently enforced in every classroom is because people are tempted. It puts too much, again, if we're doing a small group instruction with these 3 kids, I don't know what these 3 kids for the split second suddenly take their phone out. We're certainly not going to be searching kids' backpacks. So I think that's why they may say we still want to have the phone chart. I don't know. We'll work with staff on that. But that, by doing so, might take a little bit more of a burden away from the teacher having to enforce it. When they're doing small group instruction and trying to monitor behaviors and students who need to leave for the restroom, this, that, whatever, and yet also trying to focus on teaching and learning. So there may be a way to do that. So I think we'll have to explore that a little bit more. But I'm hearing not having these locked pouches, not take away instructional minutes, K8. Certainly cell phones or smart devices should not be used as rewards. They should not be used in an instructional matter. That has to be consistent. So if there are devices that are needed for a class, we would purchase a different device, recording device if it needed. Adding something about, even though I think it's implied already with current rules, but there's nothing wrong with adding to the policy about the privacy and within bathrooms and dressing rooms and locker rooms. K8. Is that summarizing the direction we're receiving thus far from the 5 of you in terms of consensus? So let's get to 912. I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're advocating for in terms of the vision for the policy for 912. I think I've heard loosely, but I don't know if we've unpacked it enough to really get, but I'll at least say what I think is, again, almost what we currently have on paper at the high school. That would almost be the second option in CSBA's sample, which is limiting the use of cell phones during instructional time, we can say classroom time, et cetera. But during passing periods and at lunchtime, not sure if there's an effective way to really manage that piece, but we're wanting to really at least minimally protect the instructional time. Same concept of it in there. Teachers should not be using it as a reward, as an extra 5 minutes left of class. Students shouldn't be using it for another aspect of their class, photo, journalism, et cetera. And again, the same thing about the bathrooms and locker rooms.
I think Matt made a really excellent point in the part about the locker rooms. And in one article I read, you might have sent it to Dr. Pulver, I'm not sure, the phones, the coaches or the teachers have a space at the very opening, at the very beginning of a locker room. The phones are taken before or put in pouches before they can enter the locker room, so that they don't lock them. They're not going to lock them away in their lockers. That's not trustworthy, because they still can have access to them. I'd like to explore ways to protect the privacy of a locker room.
I think the challenge, which we already know is about integrity and honesty of a kid, is that if they say they don't have a phone, they don't have to check anything in, right? So, gosh, we hope everyone's going to check their phone in because they want to respect that space and they want their own privacy protected. But the reality is if a kid doesn't want to say I have a phone, they're going to walk into the locker room, put it in their locker, or whatever it might be. So it's one of those ones I love that vision.
I haven't seen that be a major issue on our campus. I don't see our director of safety still here, but I haven't seen that bubble up. I think certainly could there be an instance here or there in a bathroom fight or things of that sort that I've seen, but I haven't seen that be a major issue. Not saying that we shouldn't still address it and think about that, but yeah, in the locker room. Okay.
I still would like a policy and no cell phones, but after talking through this, I see that is a really huge shift and a huge ask. And I'm not sure a lot of the community would support it either. And so I appreciate all of the dialogue, but I think as much as we can restrict and enforce what we do have, I think we're going to, it's going to create a healthier environment. So I'll go with what the majority of the board agrees.
And I did share with PTA, and I shared with some of you in my one-on-one conversations, and even the CSBA policy says the policy should be revisited at a minimum of every 5 years. So there's nothing, and I think Farnaz, you had alluded to that too. There's nothing that says we can start here, and either if it's working, not working, that's LOSAL. We always constantly evolve and try to make things better and have this continuous improvement in almost everything that we do. So it doesn't have to mean this is the end all be all, that we will continue to evolve and get smarter as we see if other districts are doing some other creative things that would work for us to, oh wow, let's consider that too. So I think it's what I want to make sure you know is even though it's creating a policy, it's not so codified that it's written in stone. Yes. That it's a living document that we'll be able to revisit and make changes, and we can kind of have this restrict and contract as needed based upon and respond as we see collectively.
And one of the things that has given me hope as I walk through the high school campus and has made me think that we do need to offer some flexibility to our high school kiddos, but having the instruction, the classroom time to be non-negotiable and without a cell phone. And the thing that I've seen is those classrooms that utilize those pouches and have set the expectation that as students walk in, they put their phones in the pouch and they don't touch it until the end of that particular class, that the students are engaged and the students are paying attention. And not one of those, and I mean, again, it's not like I'm there every day, but not one of those classes that I saw cell phones in those pouches did I see a student with a cell phone. So that gives me hope that, again, it's around communication and enforcement and providing the tools for our teachers. But I really feel like if we set the expectation and respect our upper grades, that they will abide by those policies and by those rules.
I think it's also when creating that policy, Dr. Pulver, that's so affirming, right? And so to have language in the policy about the why. Like, we need to talk to students about their mental health. I know that's already part of these assemblies and presentations, but sharing with them, this is to help you engage with your teachers, help you engage with your fellow students. I was mentioning to a parent before, if people have seen, the Anaheim Angels have banned cell phones in their locker room this year. And Mike Trout, one of the best baseball players ever, is the enforcer of this policy. And he said it's helped because they're socializing. They're having dialogue. Players are getting to know each other. And so I think same thing. Hey, if you got 5 extra minutes in class, like, let's talk about how we socialize. We can actually talk to another human. You might not do it when you walk out of the classroom, but in those 5 minutes, you might have a great conversation with a student you aren't going to. So I just think also, we oftentimes lay out policies and it's just the policy. But I think if we have that language even in there, this policy is being put in place to help, and then laying out some bullet points, it's help kind of guiding students. What should you do when you don't? Because I think that's, some of our kids are like, what do I do when I'm on my phone? It's like their brains have gone away. And so giving them that reminder, when you don't have your phone, here are things you should be doing or could be doing.
I also think that if we truly get where we are, and I'm not saying that we're not, but we truly are consistent and enforcing it in elementary school and middle school, that's going to improve what happens at the high school. Because now that's going to be their routine. That's what they're going to be used to doing. I think that, to everybody's defense, this came, I know it doesn't seem like it, but truly it came on really quick. This wasn't something that one is focused on, that now everybody has, at least one device, if not 2 devices on them. So I think by doing this and really enforcing it, we're going to start to see improvement as we move up and as we do more of that messaging of why. I like that. So I think you
That was
your direction.
Excellent. The only thing I'd add, and I don't probably think it would be a positive to address, but I do hope that the staff, teachers, administrators, any of us, when we walk on campus, we don't have our phones out either. I walk into classrooms and teachers are on their phones, and there are emergencies, but you can call for emergency to the office, and the office can call the teacher. That's probably not something we would put in the policy, but I just think that
it would be hard. I at least even for like our administrators are on their devices because so often the office is texting an administrator, this, that, whatever. They're having to. So I know at least for our administrators that'd be difficult, that they're having to respond and they're trying to respond to different things timely. So. Could we do that? Sure, but I think that there could have some other unintended consequences too. But I think, yes, I think we should. Agreed.
As a teacher and as a person who has a hard time not reaching into my purse, I would want to remember that I'm a model for my class.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's important.
Yeah. We do have a few items before we go into a closed session as well. That's on the agenda.
May I ask a quick question just about logistics? So we do this, and knowing that we've got a few more board meetings before the end of this year, is the goal to get a policy up for approval so that we can then start sharing it with parents in May, June? Is that kind of the idea?
No. So the goal is to draft the policy this school year. And so it would be probably Dr. Wiesreit, who oversees student services, along with Dr. Friedman, who would be working on this policy. We would bring it back to the board, certainly, I think probably in May as a first reading, and then a second reading in June, so that we'd have the policy approved before the new school year. But no, as I think what I had tried to communicate when we opened it is that we would be implementing this come the next school year, which would give us time to work, and our PIO would be working on helping in consultation with student services to create, and our principals to create a communication plan to outwardly to families as we roll out the new year. And that would probably have to be also something that we regularly message as well, not just the one and done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clarity is just super helpful, I think, so that people know if a policy gets approved in June, it will be enacted in August. And so that gives that communication as back to school messages come out and reminders and things like that. So I love that timing.
Which is still 1 year sooner than the state assembly bill requirement.
Thank you. Everybody's input was so powerful, so thank you very much. We're moving on to consent items. Items 6A through D. Do I have a motion for approval? Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Now we move on to action items. Elvia, approval of resolution 2024-2025 to replace signatures. I'll let you.
That's correct. Thank you, Madam President. We are bringing forward a resolution that is required by OCDE, the County Office of Education, to allow our new Director of Fiscal Services to authorize electronic payments via electronic.
I will move to approve that change of signatures.
I'll second. Got a second? Is there any discussion? Yeah, I know. Any discussion? Okay, we have a roll call
Mrs.
vote.
Parasani. Aye. Mrs. Hill. Aye. Mrs. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Forehand. Aye. Mr. Bragman.
Motion carries 5-0. We now are going to adjourn into closed session, and we will return once it's over.